Alex Garrett.
All right, well, with me on Terminello's Take, we did one last week, but it never got to air, and I said, Lou, we got to do something fresh. So thanks for coming back this week, and boy, we have a lot to talk about, don't we?
We do. Thanks for having me back, and even though we did something last week and it didn't run, Alex, I'd be on with you every day if you wanted me. You know that. I love our conversations.
We do. You give out so much knowledge. That's why I always love having you. But I got to tell you one story. So we had my dad's services on Saturday, and they were very special. I mean, thanks to everybody who's made it special. But I told the story about Harry Carey. I don't know if you know this story, but when I was about 4 or 5, we had connections at Shea Stadium. We went up to the booth to meet Harry Carey, and we got a picture with him in the booth at Shea Stadium. And I remember vividly going to the broadcast booth in Chicago and having him sign the picture. Now, where that picture went, I don't know, but that's a memory I'll always remember. So that's how deep a Cub fan my dad was. He'd always go to Chicago sometimes. So,
yeah, I've been in Wrigley Field. I've seen 3 games at Wrigley Field. I've been there 3 separate times to see Mets-Cubs. The Mets lost all 3. And Harry Carey was still alive when I went to the 3 games. And you talk about somebody who was iconic as a broadcaster in Chicago. And you see, everybody forgets. He was the White Sox announcer for many years, and then they came to a contract dispute when his contract was over. And then the Cubs made probably one of the greatest decisions when they decided to sign Harry Carey, because even though he was pretty famous as the White Sox guy, and actually before that when he was a Cardinals announcer with Jack Buck in St. Louis, but when he came to the Cubs, with the Cubs being on WGN, the superstation, that's what really cemented his greatness as not only a baseball play-by-play announcer, but as a character of the game, which he most definitely was.
Well, Lou, I'll tell you what, that's why I love the Cubs, and that's, my dad loved the Cubs. We had a Cubs jersey up on the altar for him during his service, so it kind of fit.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate.
But no, it was fun getting to talk to him about how he brought in this love of sports for me. And then, of course, you know what I did on the first Saturday in May, right?
You watched the Kentucky Derby?
It was a very big tradition that my dad and I would make time to watch the Derby every year, and I figured, well, Kentucky Derby Day is the perfect way to honor my father. So I was happy. I didn't realize Javi Castellano had not won a Derby in 16 tries, they were saying. This was his first win in 16. I was kind of surprised, but hey, he did it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you get one in your career, and it's a big deal. Just look at all the thousands of jockeys who never get an opportunity to run in a Triple Crown race, never mind win one. But again, that was a little crazy on Saturday with the favorite being scratched in the morning, and all that changing of the odds right up until race time. But let's see what happens. Let's see if the horses are going to run in the Preakness and then in the Belmont Stakes.
5 scratches overall. It's kind of surprising for a Derby, but a lot. What's happening is with all these trainers being suspended, they want to be more cautious, right? Because they don't want to be either found out doping, or they just don't want their horse to be hurt, because obviously right now trainers are under scrutiny. So that was the big thing. But I think New York tonight is really going to be restless until the Knicks win, because let's face it, I didn't expect them to get blown out the other night against Miami. I thought they'd hold their ground, but that was for a team that's been putting up 100 points, to be shut down to 86, if you will, and it was a bit of a shocking score, if you ask me, just because they were firing on all cylinders prior to Saturday.
Well, if you look at the 3 games, with the exception of a couple of possessions down the stretch on Monday night, they could easily be down 3 games to none. I mean, Miami has outplayed them 95% of the way. And with the 3 days off between games 2 and 3, I wonder if Jimmy Butler could have played in game 2. Because if Jimmy Butler played in game 2, they definitely would have been down down 3-0. But the Knicks haven't shot the ball well. They haven't shot the ball well from the perimeter. And as we had talked about when they went to the Cleveland series, I said the Knicks' big edge in the Cleveland series, even though Cleveland had Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, the Knicks will out-rebound them. That will be the difference in that series, and it was. The Knicks out-rebounded them terribly. You would think the same thing would have happened in this series, but that hasn't happened. The Heat have held their own on the boards. They are tremendously coached. I think they're the best coached team in the league. I think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the league by a good margin. They play tough defense. They have a bunch of undrafted players on their team that have had to work hard to get there, and they have a lot of interchangeable parts. But they are an 8th seed. That doesn't lie. As Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are. And I don't think the Knicks should be down 2-1. I still think they'll probably find a way to get to a 7th game. I think this will go 7. If they lose tonight, they could lose in 6. But I expect them to bounce back. They got to get more consistent from Randall. Randall's a good player. He's not a great player. Randall's not Jimmy Butler, and that's a big difference between the two teams. And you got to remember, the Heat are playing without Tyler Hero, who was a former 6th Man of the Year, and they're playing without Victor Oladipo, another excellent NBA player. So we'll see. I just think that Miami is wonderfully coached. They don't take any possessions off, and
he's been doing it for years, even with the Wade LeBron days, right? So it's been
he's an excellent. I mean, if I was with a team and I was starting a team, and if I was the basketball operations president and I need to fill a coaching vacancy, it's him without even thinking twice if he was available. But the Knicks have to win tonight. I don't know if they could win 3 in a row. Again, this is not a great Miami team, not at all, but they are great when it comes to mental toughness because of their coach.
Yeah, and obviously having Butler back. But the other series, this whole Sixers-Celtics series is very dramatic, and I've been following both of them, but I want to see if the Sixers could take down Boston, and I tell you, they're making a strong case. I don't know why Embiid would stomp on some guys in one of the guys' heads. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that was a pretty bad play. Did you see that play?
Yeah, I saw the play. You can't give Embiid the benefit of the doubt. I still can't believe he didn't get thrown out of that Game 3 in Brooklyn when he kicked at Nicholas Claxton's groin. It's just, you can't give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's a fantastic player.
And then we move on to the West, Lou, and I'll tell you what, the Lakers, what a resurgence they seem to be having here. And they have the Warriors, on the ropes a little bit, I feel like. It seems like they have the series it's their series to lose, it feels like.
Well, the thing is, you look at Game 2, they won by 27, the Warriors did. And then they got waxed the other night, and they're down 2-1. I think the Warriors are in a bit of trouble here. I really do. Because when Anthony Davis plays at the level he's played at in Games 1 and Games 3, with LeBron and D'Angelo Russell's playing better, and Austin Reeves has been a revelation, this is going to be a tough series for the Warriors to win. Very, very, very difficult series for the Warriors to win. And you got to give it to LeBron. I mean, here's a guy pushing 39 years old, and he's still one of those mercurial difference makers at the highest level in the highest league in the world. You really got to give it to him. I mean, obviously the guy has an incredibly high basketball IQ and is just such a difference maker. The Warriors are in trouble. They're in trouble. This time they are in trouble. There's no doubt about it.
And yet Steph is still showing he's Steph. I mean, they've subdued him a little bit, but we have to go back to that 50-point game. It's good to see he hasn't totally lost his stride.
No, he's still at the top of his game, Alex. He's still at the top of his game. But the Lakers right now might be a little bit better balanced team than them. I don't know what, Draymond Green, I've always thought he was overrated. I don't know what the allure of Draymond Green is as far as his contribution to a winning Warriors team. I'm not saying he doesn't contribute, but I think they put him at such a higher level than he deserves to be. So we'll see what happens. But tonight the Warriors will be challenged, and the one thing we've seen when the Warriors are challenged, they usually come through. So we'll see what happens in Game 4. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Warriors win the next 3 games. It wouldn't surprise me if the Lakers continue and win the series either.
Well, I know that you're a huge basketball fan, Lou. So from the fan perspective, then from the industry perspective, is this the kind of playoffs you'd want where you got the Knicks and Heat battling, you got the Celtics and Sixers? I mean, we could still be on the pace for some classic matchups here. That's got to excite you as a basketball fan.
Yeah, no, I think there's been a couple of tremendous games so far in these first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Obviously, the Celtics and Sixers have had a history in playoffs throughout their histories. They've had some incredible playoff series. Some have gone back 30, 40 years. But I could see that series going 7. And at the end of the game yesterday, I mean, here's something that people always want to criticize James Harden for. He doesn't come through in the clutch. Well, yesterday, besides scoring 42 points, after scoring 45 points in Game 1 without Embiid, and they won on the road, he hit the floater to tie the game, and then down 2 with 18 seconds to go, he hits the 3 from the corner to put them ahead. So those are 2 clutch shots that the media will conveniently cannot forget, that if the Sixers win the series, hey, he's the reason that they won yesterday. Also, those last 18 seconds, the Celtics had timeouts left. They didn't call them. And they waited a second too long to get the play underway because the shot came just about a full second after the light went on. And when I was watching the game with 7 seconds to go, Tatum was 40 feet out on the left side. He started too late. It kind of reminded me of Game 1 of the Nets-Celtics last year on Easter Sunday. I thought where the Celtics were in the same position, and I didn't think they were going to get a shot off. Again, the Nets at that time led by 1. They did get the shot off just in time, and the Nets lost and they ended up losing 4 straight. But they tried to do the same thing yesterday, and yesterday it bit them in the butt because Marcus Smart did hit the 3-pointer. It just came a second too late. I still think the Celtics are going to win, but I think it's going to go 7.
What's behind the Nuggets? I mean, they've been having a great postseason too. It's not all Jokic though, right? He's got a whole team around him.
No, the Nuggets have a tremendous team. They're the 1 seed in the West. Murray's a terrific player. They have depth. Jokic, who I think should have been the MVP. I mean, he scored 53 points last night. He took only 30 shots. He was 20 out of 30. And he gets everybody else involved. He's a high-scoring player who doesn't shut out the rest of his team because he's a high-scoring player. He can score, he can rebound, he can pass. And this could be one of those series that's a 7-game series with each team winning on their home court, which I hate, but that happens a lot. And Devin Booker is playing lights out for the Suns, and Durant's having a terrific series. He didn't have a great game 2 shooting the ball, but again, he has been there. Let's see, he's been there less than 15 games. So they still don't have their chemistry, but that could be a 7-game series with each team winning on the other's home court.
Would be interesting. I feel like the road team has had a lot of success in both leagues right now, or both sports right now. So we got to see. Now, It's kind of interesting because we didn't post about the reaction to the Devils Rangers, but the real aftermath is gone after 2 seasons, and we had talked midseason, Lou. Are they going to fire him? Are they on the verge? And then they make the playoffs, But obviously, this was in the works for a little while, was it not?
Well, I mean, if they had one game, if they had won round one, they wouldn't even be thinking about this. But the Rangers were humiliated, and we talked about it. You know, they were humiliated in Game 7 by a young, inexperienced team that never had played a Game 7 before, especially against a Rangers team that went through a couple of Game 7s as recently as Gallant's first year last year. Apparently, Gallant at times could be a little stubborn. Apparently, there was some kind of verbal exchange between general manager Chris Drury and Gallant after they lost Game 4 at the Garden against the Devils. This is a now team, and it's the one thing we see in sports, and we talk about it a lot. The window closes quickly. The Rangers' window, I don't believe, is closing. It's closed, but I think it's not as wide open as it was. So we have to see where they go here. I have no idea who they'll go after. I mean, you see some of the usual suspects. I mean, Bruce Boudreau's name comes up. If I was a Ranger fan, I wouldn't want Bruce Boudreau. I mean, he's coached 5-6 teams. I really wouldn't. I mean, I don't know where they go for a coach. Do they pick the Hartford Wolfpack coach, Knobloch? I don't know, because they said that he's ready to take the reins. Look, they went young a couple of years ago with David Quinn, and they moved away from him when they made the massive change in the front office with President Davidson, with the general manager Gordon, with Quinn. Do they go with another young coach? I don't know. I really, this is one time I really can't gauge what they're going to do. But a lot of Ranger players, the guys that you count on, they always say your best players have to be your best players. Well, against the Devils, they weren't. And
Lou, on that note, I got to ask you this. I think the reasoning, maybe you disagree, is because they probably said, hey, we got you these big names. We got you Tarasenko. We got you, guys like, I don't know, Patrick Kane. And you have your homegrown talent in Kreider, in Panarin, in Zabet. You couldn't do anything with that. I think that's their biggest gripe is they had the team, but they couldn't do anything with it, and that's probably why he's fired.
I would agree with that. I mean, this is definitely an out team, and they failed miserably. I mean, there's really no other way to say it, and again, and on top of it, they didn't lose the first round. They lost their first round to their Cross River rival, somebody in their market, and that's right in their face. Like I said, it's not like they lost to the Detroit Red Wings in the first round. That still would hurt, but it would be a different type of hurt. That's for sure.
And now the Devils, they looked better last night, obviously scoring, I think, 8 goals in their game against Carolina, which was a surprise, considering Carolina shut them down the first 2 games. Is it home ice? Did they finally, it seems like Lindy Ruff's making adjustments every series, right? So he made another one yesterday?
Well, that's before we talk about what he did yesterday, and he did make a huge adjustment yesterday. That's where also I think got Gallant fired. Here is Lindy Ruff, an ex-Ranger assistant coach, making adjustments in that Ranger series, and Gallant did change some lines around, but apparently he's not big at the X's and O's during the game, and that's another thing that got Gallant in trouble. But Lindy Ruff, I mean, just look at yesterday. They're down 2-0, and again, with those 2 games in Raleigh, it looked like, okay, we beat the Rangers. That was our Stanley Cup. We're a young team. We have 9 guys who are in the playoffs for the first time. Okay, well, we'll take our summer vacation, and we'll get ready to go to the next level next year. But no, they came out strong yesterday. They made one huge lineup change, putting in a 19-year-old defenseman who was drafted 4th overall, brother of Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, put him in a tough spot. He played on the power play. He played every shift, and he made one bad play which led to the penalty shot. But overall, he was very, very impressive. He helped the Devils move the puck and get away from that Carolina forechecking, and he also put Vanacek in back in goal. Now, I do not think Vanacek was great yesterday. I thought he was very shaky. Good thing the Devils scored 8 goals. So that's a storyline moving into game 4 tomorrow night. Vanacek is certainly going to be in net because he won last night. But I thought he was shaky, Alex. I really did. I did not think Luke Hughes, at the age of 19, playing in his third NHL game and his first playoff game, was shaky. He was tremendous. And obviously, barring some kind of catastrophic situation, he's going to be with the team when they break camp next year. And yesterday, Jack Hughes was great. And they also got hurt Nico Hischier to score a goal, got him off to Schneid, and they also got Timo Meier to score his first goal. And Timo Meier played a terrific series against the Rangers. The only thing, he was playing like a third and fourth liner. He was a lot of hits. He was showing a lot of jam, but he's a top 6 forward, and they need to score goals, and he did score yesterday. So it was a good win for the Devils. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I think, is the key game in the series. Devils win tomorrow night. It's going to go 7, and either team could win.
Remember last year, the Rangers went to 7 in this exact same round against the Hurricanes, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
And beat them. But we'll see if this is the same fate for the Devils. We'll have to see what happens. But Lou, I gotta talk about this because I mean to ask you about this. We talked about it a little bit in our prior recording, but in Major League Baseball, I have to touch on this before we go into the Mets and Yankees. This guy, what's his name, Drew, the 33-year-old with the Pirates. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Is it very rare that a 33-year-old can make his Major League debut in 2023, or is this a frequent thing? It doesn't feel as frequent as you were mentioning back in the 70s. This was happening a lot.
Yeah, in the 60s and 70s, that happened more than it does now. But Drew Maggi played over 1,500 minor league baseball games, and the guy would not give up. And a couple of weeks ago, the Pirates brought him up, and he was able to get in a couple of games, and he got a hit, and he scored a run. He is back down in the minors. I don't know if the Pirates intend on bringing him back up along the way, but guy's 33 years old. The guy never gave up on his dream, and he has a lifetime batting average, I believe, of .333. I think he's 1 for 3.
You know, it's funny. Because he's a veteran of the game. There's another veteran of the game that you've been impressed with in Pittsburgh, by the way, in McCutchen. I believe he says his return has fired the team up, right? Like him coming back has really just changed the culture there. Well,
McCutchen's a pro, and he played on those really, really good Pirate teams that won 98, I think, and 97 games back-to-back, and both times lost that one-game wild card playoffs. He's an excellent player, obviously, on a young team like the Pirates, who have a lot of good young players. He makes a difference. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, he's not in the prime of his career anymore, but McCutchen right now is a difference maker as far as instilling confidence in the young team. Now, the Pirates had a very tough weekend against the Toronto Blue Jays. They got hammered, and they lost all three games at home. But I think they're in the right direction. They signed Reynolds to the 8-year extension, which a lot of people thought he was going to be traded. They got to do what they got to do as far as, the way they construct their roster. They're not a big money market, but they do have some good players. They really do. They have Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds, and the shortstop who I think is out for the year, and he's one of their best players. But this Drew Maggi thing did give, I think, when the star players, as these star young players see Drew Maggi, that gives them some kind of motivation also to keep on going. So yeah, that's a great story, and we'll see if he comes back. I would love to see the kid come back to the majors sometime this year.
Now, one other feel-good story while we're talking about it is Liam Hendricks is back in the minors after beating his cancer, and seeing those stories, and I love seeing these guys bounce back. And, the White Sox could really use him when he comes back up.
Well, for sure. I mean, actually, during the off season, before he was diagnosed with cancer, he was a free agent or a trade piece that they said the Mets were going after. And I think if the Mets, he would help the Mets, and with the White Sox being 11-23 or 12-24, whatever they are right now, Liam Hendricks might be a guy that is available later on in the season. Because one of the things, just going back to the Mets, Robinson's been terrific, Ottavino's been terrific, but they're using them every day, and the underbelly, the guys that are leading up to those guys, are not doing the job because of the Diaz injury. So you never know. I hope the kid comes back. Like I said, the White Sox are 12-23, so still early. They can bounce back. But it's good to see. It's good to see that the young man has recovered.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of the Mets, do you find the series unacceptable against the Rockies, or what? I find it unacceptable being blown out like that yesterday. But then again, here we are just talking. We're not playing the game. It is frustrating to watch, though.
Oh, I think it's very frustrating to watch. They're just not getting the pitching. I mean, now that Scherzer and Verlander are back. I know Scherzer got beat up in his first game back, and he's only pitched 3 innings going into that game in 23 days. But if they can get Scherzer and Verlander back into a every 5-day rhythm, and hopefully Carrasco can come back soon, they need guys to give them an effective 5 or 6 or 7 innings. David Pearson has been a big disappointment, at least in my eyes. I thought he had a chance to be a solid number 3 starter. The guy's too inconsistent, and the Mets sent him down last week. But they need him, and it seems like he has talent, but he can't untap that talent. But the Mets have. Even though it's only 20% of the season is gone, I'd be a little concerned if I was, and I am a Mets fan, and I am concerned about the Mets at this point. Marte has not had the year he had last year. Yes, it's only his first 5 weeks of the season. He just looks like there's something wrong. And, sometimes when you have old guys, I'm not saying this is with Marte, but in general, some guys lose it right away. They go from having a great year to losing it right away. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's what's happening for Marte, but it's something to look at. It really is. And Lindor's batting .215. I mean,
pretty remarkable. It's pretty stunning considering, as I said, you can't play this game on paper, because if you did, the Mets and Yankees would be leading their division by mid-April.
Right. Yeah, it is, and they're not. And looking at the Yankees, yesterday was a bad loss for them. You have your best pitcher, who has had a very, very good first 5 weeks of the season, been handed a 6-0 lead, and the Yankees don't win that game. That's a gut punch.
And you just mentioned a little while ago, it's still early, but I don't think so, because, we've talked about it a little bit. It's 12-game series for each of these teams against their rivals. Makes every game matter more than it did when they were playing 19 times. And I think that
absolutely
a series loss will really this hinders the Yanks, not just being 10 games behind, but losing to an in-division rival 3 of your first 12 games. That's just 2 out of 3 of the first 12 games is not good. Where do both teams go from here? Because of the whole not sprint, not a marathon mentality I'm having, they have to right their ships pretty quick.
Well, there's a couple of silver linings. One, that they allow, it's now 7 teams in the playoffs. That's silver lining number 1. Silver lining number 2 is both teams have had a lot of injuries, and they really don't have their roster. So hopefully they can get their injured guys back and get on some kind of a consistent winning situation. The Mets, example, were 14-7, and they look like, okay, we've held Bay. Now we got to get our injured guys back. But now, since they were 14-7, that's 3-11, and the schedule hasn't been really tough. Yes, they did play Atlanta, but they played Detroit, they played Washington, they played Colorado. It's not a tough series, and they do have some tough games coming up. That's for sure. They got to play Tampa.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty, but we will have to keep track of it now. And of course, Steve Cohen wants to put a retractable roof, which is just kind of crazy to me. But I want to ask you about Aaron Rodgers. Did you like his media tour, so to speak, or Phantom tour when he was literally sleeping over at the Garden for one Ranger game and then the next game the next night? I thought it was kind of funny that this is how dedicated and immersive he wanted to be.
I think as we said the last time we spoke, I think he's all in. And last time we spoke was literally 20 minutes after his press conference at Florham Park at the Jets facility. But I think being seen at the Ranger game at the Garden, at the Knick game at the Garden, practicing at Florham Park where he really didn't have to. It was just throwing a football around. It wasn't a strenuous practice. But I think that all shows that, hey, I'm here to make a historic difference, and I hope he can. I think he can. The Jets still have some roster holes to fill. We'll see what happens. But there's no reason, barring catastrophic injuries, to Sauce Gardner or Garrett Wilson or people like that, Quincy Williams. This team should be very, very good. I think he's planting the flag, saying, "Hey, I'm here to win. I'm not here just to show up for big games at the Garden or at Yankee Stadium or at Citi Field or wherever."
No, it's going to be fun. And the schedule release, I know they're on Sunday Night Football, I think the first week.
Well, again, I haven't seen anything official. The official schedule comes out on Thursday night. I'm sure that you'll see them in a lot of the prime 425 slots, the Thursday Night Football slot, the Monday Night Football slot, and they have been on Sunday Night Football in 10 years. So they'll definitely be on Sunday Night Football.
That is something. And the Post had a whole story about the Rodgers coming to the Jets. I guess there's a big storyline, if you read about it or not, but there's something going on in the Post about that.
About how it all evolved. So I saw the headline. I didn't read the story, but it had to be interesting about how they went. And the Jets played their hand right, and let's see what happens.
We will. Now, obviously, there's a bit of and I know you grew up watching them. By the way, what are the stories of the sport, before we get to Vita Blue, anything else that's sticking out to you in the sports world this week?
No, I mean, like I said, I think what we talked about earlier, I think the NHL players have been terrific. They have been fantastic. Florida, obviously up 3-0 on Toronto. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, they were the President Trophy winners last year. They were the 8th seed this year. They're very good. But, again, the teams that had the pressure on them, how many are still surviving? The Rangers had the pressure on them. They're out. The Bruins had the pressure on them because they had this historic season, most points, most wins. They bid to Florida. They blew a 3-1 lead. They're out. So the other three teams that we had with the pressure on, Toronto on the verge of being eliminated. Carolina winning the division 3 years in a row. The pressure's on them to move on. And, of course, Edmonton. And I think out of all the teams, that the 5 teams that we talked about that I felt had the most pressure on them coming in, that's going to get to a final, that can get to a final and win a cup, I think is Edmonton right now.
I'm hoping for it. I love McDavid on the guys. Really quick here, and Draisaitl. Oh my God, those two have really been.
Their power play is historic. That's for sure.
4 goals in the first period alone. That's pretty impressive.
That is.
Nonetheless. Now, one last topic. And by the way, Vida Blue did pass away, and I don't know if you have an anecdote about him or watching him pitch, but I want to close out with this other question. All these guys that say fire Boone, fire. Do you hate the fans armchair quarterbacking everywhere they can go? It drives me nuts. It's just like you're not going to make a change. I don't know. It's when they say fire someone, it never makes sense to me because they can't control who's managing, right?
Well, it's easy to say fire Boone, fire Showalter, fire Sala, fire Gallant. It's easy. That's easy. That's the easy way. Now, again, do I think Boone is going to be confused with Miller Huggins or Sparky Anderson? No, I don't. Do I think he's the reason why the Yankees are only 19 and 17? I don't. I don't think that it's his fault. Of course, there are situations in the game where even the greatest managers make what we believe is head-scratching decisions. But these guys know their team, and you really have to defer to them. But it's easy to say, "Hey, I was listening this morning, and somebody was questioning Showalter. Yeah, he's good the first year with a team, but then after that, come on. I mean, are you kidding me?
Well,
after that, he's not that good. But so I think
it does get frustrating listening to talk radio sometimes when these guys call up and say things they don't know what they're saying. Sometimes.
Well, most of them don't know what they're saying, and that's why I really have drifted away from listening to sports talk radio.
Oh, that's great. All right, well, thank you so much, Lou. And one last thought on Vida Blue, if you have any, because I know that's a big loss in the baseball world.
Yeah, no, he was a tremendous pitcher. Pitched for a tremendous team that won 3 straight World Series. He won 209 games in an era where pitching was king as far as you're going 8 or 9 innings. And Vida Blue had an incredible fastball. He worked fast. He didn't need a pitch clock. He did it. He just kept pounding that fastball into the strike zone, and he had great command. He, I guess, threw in the 95 miles per hour. He actually was recruited to play football at Notre Dame, if I recall correctly, and but he needed to sign with the A's because of the $12,500 bonus he got. He needed to help his family because I think his father just passed away. But when he came to the major leagues, he hit the major leagues running. His rookie year was really impressive, and they brought him up at the end of 1 year, and then the next year he stuck, and he was 24-8. 182 ERA, struck out 301 batters in an era where guys didn't strike out like they strike out nowadays. So he was on those great A's teams. And the A's won those 3 straight World Series, but they also won the division in '74, and they were a great team, and they took no prisoners. But the one thing about Vida Blue that most people don't know, he won the 1971 Cy Young Award and MVP. So when he won the MVP award in 1971, he is the answer to a trivia question. The answer being, who was the last switch hitter to win the Most Valuable Player award in the American League? It was Vida Blue, because there was no DH for another 2 years. He batted righty and lefty. He's the last switch hitter to win MVP in the American League back in 1971. So when when you're with your buddies, see how many of them know that.
I will put that on my trivia sheet cue card. I'll make sure to put that up there. All right, Lou, love you, man, and we'll be in touch for next week as well on the Terminello's Take. And again, thanks for everything this week.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me as always. And next week we'll know what the schedule in the NFL looks like. We can look at some of the key games. The Devil series will have advanced. It might be over. Same thing with the Knicks and the Heat. So with the Suns and the Nuggets, we'll see if one of the teams can win on the other team's home court. Like I said, that might be a home court series right throughout. The Warriors and Lakers, very, very compelling series. So we got a lot to talk about moving forward, and hopefully the Mets and Yankees can turn it around a little bit.
That would be nice. But until then, that was Terminello's Take, and we will be back with them next week on the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight.